Hello everybody, if you're new here, my name is Gian. I'm an incoming second-year nursing student currently studying at Cebu Normal University here in the Philippines. And what you just saw there was a recap of all the memories and experiences I had during my first year of nursing school. So to prepare you for the journey ahead, I, along with a bunch of my good friends, compiled a list of tips that'll help you succeed during your first year in nursing school or your first year of college. And I really wish that I had learned these tips way before I entered college. So stay tuned and wait until the end for an important announcement. I want to start off by talking about your first semester. So this first semester is coined as your adjustment period because you're transitioning from high school life into college life. So don't be discouraged right away. Try not to feel the pressure and difficulty that you can experience during your first semester because everyone will go through it. It's a very hard transition, but you'll learn right away. And this brings me to my next point. When everyone gets into college, they start from square one. So the achievements that you received back in high school and the acclaim you got from your peers won't translate over to you in college. And this is not to say that your achievements in high school don't really matter. Obviously, you wrote them down in your application when applying to the school, and you were chosen based on that and the score that you got on your entrance exam. But what I'm saying is that the achievements you got in high school won't define who you are in college. So don't expect your fellow classmates to treat you differently based on the successes you had back in high school, because chances are they were just as much of an achiever as you were. So look at college as a fresh start, because everyone starts from scratch, everyone starts at the bottom, and people view you based on how hard you work to make it to the top. You'll first meet your batchmates during freshman orientation day, and I actually recorded my experience of freshman orientation day last year, so if you want to see it, you can click on the card on top, and it'll redirect you to my video from my first day of university. The whole morning consists of speeches from faculty members welcoming you into college, and followed by a bunch of games and icebreakers to, break any tension in the room. For me, we experienced a lot of tension. A lot of people were socially awkward during that day. So those games really helped us to bond and lessen the tension. After the morning session, you'll have a 1 to 2 hour lunch break. And I was fortunate enough that 3 of my other high school batchmates were also accepted into the school, so I didn't eat alone that day. But if you are alone, use the morning session to make friends. Start talking to them, initiate conversation, because they will be with you for the rest of the 4 years anyway. So why not start now, and so that you can have someone to tag along with when lunchtime comes around. So after you hang out with your friends, after you eat lunch, the realization of what nursing school really entails starts to set in. Once you get back, everyone is divided into groups, and we go on a campus tour. When touring around the nursing facilities, you'll get to hear the experiences of your upperclassmen, and you'll get an instant culture shock. The realization starts to set in, and you don't know if you're actually going to push through with nursing because the information that you receive is just so shocking. And if I were to explain it, it's like reality slapped you in the face and said, this is it. This is real. There's no going back. I mean, there is going back. You can always shift, but just know that what you're getting yourself into requires a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and you need to commit. Commit to this profession, commit to the patients you may have in the future. And you'll really view this job differently once you get to learn about nursing as a profession and as a discipline. But what you must remember is that you're all in this together. You get to share this journey with the people you met that day, and your goal is to grow as a collective. You have to help each other out during this learning process, and try not to be competitive or create competition amongst your classmates. What you have to remember is that an individual is only as good as their environment or their support system. So be kind to each other, help one another so that all of you can succeed. So moving on, you'll get a real taste of the dread of college by your second week. At this point, you've gotten used to your schedule, and you know what to expect from your assignments and outputs. The next thing you need to focus on is getting to know your professor. Focus on the little things they do, how they teach, how they behave, and what they present during lecture compared to what they give during assessments. Another piece of advice I can give you is that you don't need to be the best of friends with your professor, but allow them to know of you. You can do this by engaging in topic discussion during class, asking questions, or even answering the questions that the teacher gives you. This way, the teacher will admire you for your enthusiasm, and they'll surely keep you at the back of their mind. In general, create that bond with your professor. Before you know it, your professors will start giving out tests and quizzes. And I remember in anatomy and physiology, we had our first exam on the second meeting. And I was very ill prepared for that exam. I did not study enough and it really showed because I failed that exam. And honestly, failing is normal, but it's normal to fail, especially if you're in a med-related course. So my piece of advice to you is to not view your failure as a setback or to not make it discouraging, but rather view your failure, learn from your mistakes in order to better yourself and improve yourself the next time you take a test. But if it gets to that point where every test that you take is just fail after fail after fail, you're gonna have to start rethinking your study strategies. So here are some tips that you can adopt into your study habit. The first study tip is to study smarter but not necessarily harder. What you need to realize is that doing an all-nighter, cramming everything within one night for the test the following morning doesn't always guarantee success. If anything, you'll just be tired and more anxious because you spend the whole night going through all the information but not really retaining it. The best advice is to study in advance or do spaced repetition. So by studying in advance, you're able to space out all the content that you need to learn. So say you tackle one chapter this day, the next chapter the other day, and so on. So little by little, you're taking in all this information. But what you have to remember is that this entails sacrifice. Sacrificing your free time, your leisure time, just so that you can lessen the load for you to study in the future. An added bonus is that you'll be able to memorize all this information even after you take the exam because you spent so much time taking it all in, really getting into the content. As opposed to cramming everything within one night, taking the test the following morning, then forgetting everything thereafter. So that's my first tip, which is to do spaced repetition, spacing out all the content so that you don't have to struggle the night before the exam. Second tip is to develop a note-taking system that'll make your study sessions more efficient. And it's really based on your preference, so maybe you'd like to handwrite your notes during lecture, then type it out after on a Word document. Or maybe the content that you're studying has a lot of high-yield facts, so you want to use flashcards for that. And there are programs like Quizlet and Anki that are free to download and that'll make it more efficient, and you don't have to spend as much time actually physically writing out flashcards. And there's a system that I prefer most, and it's free for students, and it's a program called Notion. It's where I can organize and style my notes and where I can do active recall. So if you want to learn more about note-taking in general, active recall, spaced repetition, I'll link 2 channels down below that really help me in terms of note-taking. You also need to develop your strategies in note-taking. A piece of advice I can give you is to listen during the lecture and really write down whatever the prof says. But honestly, it depends on your professor, because some professors like to talk about different stuff during the lecture and then only include book information during their test. But if you do see that pattern where your professor says something during the lecture and it comes out on the exam, you'll have a better way of knowing what topics to focus on instead of focusing on, say, the whole chapter that you'll be tested on. If you're the person that likes to talk aloud when studying, you can experiment with group study sessions. That way you guys can discuss the content and maybe even get to test your knowledge or understanding on a certain topic. And when you're studying, it's always best to have more than one reference. So say I'm studying for Fundamentals of Nursing Practice, which is in 2nd semester, and I have the book that my teacher recommended out in front of me, and I also have open a PDF of another book that I found online that is of the same subject. And some books really explain it better than others, so it's really nice to have that option of more information at your disposal. Test out different note-taking strategies and different note-taking systems so that you can find out which one you prefer, so that you can ensure your notes are comprehensive and a reliable source of information. Bro, it's like so hot in here. Summer outside, you know? Anyways, in college, your midterms and final grades are very, very important. Unlike high school, where your midterm and final grades are only like 20% of your overall grade, in college, midterms and finals make up 40% of your overall grades. My friends and I found it really helpful to start studying and compiling all your notes 2 weeks prior to the exams. But if you really want an edge, you can already start making your study guides and compiling all your notes at the beginning of each term. So after each class, you can dump all your notes into this big master document, which will serve as your study guide in the future. After each meeting every day, it'll start building up until you have this full, comprehensive, ready-to-use study guide to study for your midterm or your finals. So yeah, those were 3 study tips I gave you so you can hopefully adopt them into your study habit. But now we're gonna go back on track to the general tips on how to survive nursing school. I cannot stress this enough. Sleep is very important. Although some people perform better when cramming the information or doing an all-nighter, you have to remember that you should never risk your health just for that good grade. Sure, maybe your schedule is filled up and you have to do it once in a while, but don't do it consecutively and don't do it every day. Because in the end, you're just gonna be a zombie. You're still alive, but you feel so dead inside. I learned a tip from my friend that help ensure I get adequate sleep each night. So I set imaginary deadlines for myself. Say I go home around 7, and I tell myself that I have to finish everything that I need to finish today by 10 p.m. And by forming that imaginary deadline, you put pressure on yourself to work at full capacity to ensure that you can finish everything before that time. So by 10 o'clock, you're done with everything, you're done with all your assignments, everything you need to study for the next day, and you get to have full, good, adequate sleep. The next tip is very useful in the second semester of your first year, which is get an uyab, or get a girlfriend or boyfriend to practice on. In your second semester of your first year in nursing school, you'll have practical exams which are called term demonstration. Term demonstrations highlight the actions that you have to take when caring for your patient in a healthcare setting. So this is a very unconventional tip. If you don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend, it's fine. It's nice to have one, I guess. You can ask them for help when practicing for a return demonstration, like injections or administering parenteral medication, physical examinations, or anything that involves you, the nurse, and a patient. But I think a better option would just be to ask your classmates, since they're gonna do the same thing anyway, so that way you get to help each other out. The next tip is to drink your water. Water ensures that your nervous system is working at its highest capacity. It's very helpful for proper circulation, especially in a stressful environment such as the College of Nursing, and it helps regulate your blood pressure through sufficient fluid intake. Be friends with people that want to see you succeed in life. You really need to form that solid support system. If not family, then your friends. And I'm happy to say that my whole class is my support system, and we really help each other out. And by finding the right people and the right friends, you'll soon notice that these are probably people you want to keep for life. Focus more on your efforts rather than your talents. Your talents can be intelligence, maybe you're naturally gifted, but you won't succeed if you do not put in the work. So you have to study hard, study smart, and you'll see growth, you'll see progress, you'll succeed. And the very last one is to make it your aim to grow and learn in college. Even though you have bad grades, even though you've failed a bunch of tests, make sure you learn from your mistakes so that you can have that information on hand when you care for your patients in the future. I think success in college and success in life in general is all about growth. You need to see progress in yourself. And this is especially important if you're planning to proceed to healthcare in the future. Oof, and we're done. Honestly, I'm gonna take this off because it's super hot right now. So if you've been updated with the news or you've been on Twitter for the past week, you'd know about the unjust murder of George Floyd and how it's connected to the racist ideals and systematic racism in the US, and the issue of police brutality and racism towards Black people or persons of color. I wholeheartedly agree and support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I feel that the situation that was forced upon them needs to be resolved. A second key issue I'd like to talk about is the anti-terror bill. And I don't want to say a lot because anything I could say can be used against me and I can be labeled as a terrorist, stuff like that. So I've included petition links below that'll help you learn more about these issues and how you can help support the Black Lives Matter movement and stand against this junk terror bill. Please like this video if you liked it, comment down below if you have any further questions about nursing school or how to survive it, and subscribe down below if you want to see more content. This has been Gian, goodbye for now.